Hi, Lucy. My name is Stephen McCann. I'm a graduate student. I'm a Master of Architecture student at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm the student interviewer for the Goldsmith lectures. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes and ask about your work. So I have some fun questions for you, and then I have some more, theoretical architecture talk questions for you. But yeah, I guess we'll start, I think pertinent to a lot of students or faculty when they see your title, body architect, you've really tried to blur the lines, between what is architecture and what is sculpture and what is research and what is, being a visionary. So what is architecture to you? And how does your work relate to architecture?
I don't see architecture as something fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I see it in the spirit of research and investigation, inquiry, a stage and a platform to ask, I think, the biggest questions around how we move forward as a culture, as a humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And the work that I'm doing at SciArc as a visiting professor, the seminar that I'm running at the moment is asking the far-reaching question, could human consciousness be a scalable technology? So I think that architecture is a form of a petri dish where we can throw stuff in there and ask or see what unfolds or what develops depending upon who's been thrown in there and what the topic is. Obviously, we have, I'm at home in a building likely designed by an architect. So I think we have it's kind of traditional modes, but I'm much more interested in it being an area to propel and perpetuate what we think the future may be like.
Okay. And then I guess I asked that question because, and maybe this is just your documentation, I see it more in your process work and your drawings, the relation of the body to the environment and that separation. But the work pieces I've seen that you've published are very close to the body. And so I wonder what scale means in your work and how the body relates to expanse and things that are around it or other bodies.
For the last 10 years, I've been developing membranes around the body, that close proximity. And I was working in a far future design research lab, trying to understand how emerging technologies would yield new business for Philips, the consumer electronics company. And this is really the first time, when I started looking at technology through an artistic lens. And this was very much around wearable tech. And I became more interested in what comes after wearable tech. So more like second skins and machines. And so for the last 10 years, I've been building tight-fitting, vacuum-sealed membranes, cushions, compressions around the body. And during my time at Philips, in my own personal time, I was living in Eindhoven, which is a small city in Holland, and I would hang out the window with garden sprinkler systems trying to blur the edge of my body with a projector and water. And so that sort of became this question around where does the body end and the near environment start? And then throws into question, are we a mind? Are we a body? Are we a self? Where do we stop and start? And then from the context of technology, is technology on or off, black or white? No. Can we develop a maybe technology? So it's really about blurring those biological edges of the body from many different themes.
But so we work in physical media, both architects and yourself. We work in physical media. So how do we start approaching qualia? How do we start approaching the non-physical, that which connects us or the space around our body? How does your work start approaching that quality?
I think it's through experimentation. I think that, the intangible, the visceral, the invisible, they're not really quantifiable. So air, pressure, foams, gases, liquids. For me, it's just a place to play and experiment without going in there knowing what the answer is. I think that's really important, that if we are going to develop something that we haven't done before, then any concept of what we think it will be a limitation. So I think it's maybe a state of mind going into that exploration, regardless of what it is, whether it's invisible or visible, just to go in with no expectation.
Right. Okay, and then I'll ask one question. My computer's, unfortunately, there's no hope. It's going to die. So we'll just have this short 10-minute interview to so when I disappear, know that I have a non-physical self that is all encompassing. And then yeah, I and this fits in tightly with what we were talking about last time. I'm curious about the dialectic in your work. I'm curious about this relationship and development of compression in your work, and I think that's a tool that a lot of architecture students play with, the relationship between compression and expansion, and what techniques and advice do you have for architecture students to elaborate on that dialectic, and what does that dialectic have to offer architecture?
I work with really familiar materials. So whether it's a vacuum cleaner, a leaf blower, it's not rocket science, the technologies that I'm using. And it's really that approach of transformation and alchemy. What happens if I dismantle all of this stuff and compose it into something that didn't exist before? So that transformation of one material to another. And that is really how I continue to work, is to prototype, use the camera as a frame to decide whether it was a successful prototype or not. I think the naked eye sees things differently than through a lens. And so I kind of use that as a frame to decide, and then just keep making and pushing and making, and bringing in things that wouldn't necessarily make sense. Working with jelly, working with, materials that wouldn't exist normally in a creative studio.
Wouldn't exist in their relationship, or wouldn't exist separately?
I urge students that I teach, rather than working with resins or silicones, let's work with agar, with gelatin, because it's much more temporary, lower cost, and it's not normally used. And I'm interested in the not normally used in the kitchen, sure, but not in the architecture studio. And I think because of it being an anomaly in the world of architecture, it makes it more of an alien material for inquiry.
Understand. So trying to dispel those normal boundaries that we have without structural systems or any of these things that may put up barriers for our thought.
And just expanding the options, to go beyond materials that would normally be considered model making, architectural installation materials, and bring in, you know, foreign, the underdog, the odd one out.